Thanks so much for listening. Before getting into today's episode, I just wanted to let you know that I would love to add value to you, your organization, and those you serve through speaking, training, professional development, or coaching. Over the last year, I've been fortunate to work with those in higher education, pre-K-12, and more recently, the corporate space. To learn more, visit my website at cjleadership.com or send me an email at chris@cjleadership.com. I can't wait to hear from you, and now on to our episode. Welcome back, friends, to the Department Chair Leadership Podcast. I'm always so grateful when you take time out of your busy day to improve yourself and those you serve through engaging in development as a leader. I'm really excited here to have today's guest, not only a wonderful leader, accomplished higher ed professor, but also not to age us too much, but somebody that we probably go back probably over 3 decades now. If you could see the video, though, you wouldn't think that we're that old. So maybe that's a good thing. But today I'm joined by Dr. Brad Badertscher. He's the Deloitte Professor of Accountancy and the Department Chair of the Accountancy Department at the University of Notre Dame. Brad researches financial accounting issues, focusing on financial reporting quality. And in recent papers, he examined fair value accounting and private firm accounting. Brad was an editor at the Accounting Review and has other editorial positions. Brad teaches in the Notre Dame undergrad and MBA programs. Brad earned his MBA and PhD in accounting, from the University of Iowa, and his undergraduate from the University of Nebraska Kearney, go Lopers, in mathematics and statistics. So Brad, good to see you again. We go back a few years, as I said. I guess welcome to the show, and how are you doing?
Oh, thank you, Chris, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm doing well. It's been a journey since 3 decades ago. I don't think I ever would have thought I would be sitting here in my position or talking to alumni about the role of department chairs. But it's a pleasure to be here. So thank you for asking.
Well, as he mentioned, Brad and I both did our undergraduate degrees together, literally lived in the same dorm our freshman year with a group of great gentlemen who've gone on to do wonderful things. And yeah, we connected. Higher ed is a small world, connected through kind of a mutual acquaintance at a training or at a conference. And I've kind of from afar kept up with the great things that Brad has been doing. And really wanted to reach out because certainly never had a chair of accountancy department chair, and just wanted to get your take, certainly being at a larger institution. And so just to get us started, Brad, why don't you just give us a little background about how you ended up sitting where you're at today as a department chair of accountancy at Notre Dame.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. It's been a journey. I joined Notre Dame 17 years ago, and with no intention of ever thinking about leadership roles or department chairs. Right. That you go to a institution to get a PhD, and they train you in none of that aspects. Right. And so but as your career develops, you receive tenure first, and then you sort of see, what's the future of this department, what's the future of the college, what's the future of the university. You see opportunities that come up because service is a key aspect of any institution, and so they look for people that are capable, of interest, to fill those roles. And it often starts by being on a committee, or you're asked to sort of play a role or fill in here, or be on college council, and you get a voice in the college, and people start to sort of maybe say, hey, this person could play a key role in leadership. And I really hesitated to do it until I was a full professor, because that to me was a career accomplishment, and I didn't want to take away from my research, and I really wanted to achieve that before I would consider being a department chair. And so once I attained full professor at Notre Dame, at least, they sort of have a program that I think is now in hindsight a wonderful program, where they they sort of identify key leaders, and they put them through a 12-week ND lead experience where you get to sort of meet all of the key constituent stakeholders at the university level. And that really opened my eyes to how things work, whether it's the president, the VP, the provost, HR, development. I mean, you need to have a good grasp of those because at some point you're getting an email, a knock on the door that's coming from those stakeholders, and having had that experience really then said, all right, I think I can take on this role and be as successful as I can. And so this is my third year. Here at Notre Dame, we have 3-year terms. So I'm up for my term, if you will. So I'm considering re-upping for another 3 years. I'm in the process of deciding, I guess, and the dean is seeking feedback from the faculty. But I've enjoyed a lot of it. It actually has been very rewarding, but also very challenging on dealing with humans can be challenging, and you never know what you're going to get into. So,
Well, and I often say that leadership means you're in the people business. And certainly in higher ed, I've never had a difficult conversation about something on somebody's CV. It's
mm,
usually the behaviors that they,
yeah,
exhibit after you onboard them. And so, certainly never a dull day. One thing that you mentioned, and I know not everyone has this luxury, but I personally think it is so important to be not only tenured, but if your goal is to move up to full professor, in an ideal world, I think that is preferable. We
yeah,
know that some people that just because of who's on faculty and where they're at, um, but I guess since you've been able to have that ability, maybe speak to the extent to which you think your perspective and your ability to do the job, I would say, is probably enhanced because you were able to get your tenure, get full professor at the University of Notre Dame, which is no small feat. How has that helped you, do you think, become a better leader and maybe, I'm guessing, mentor of junior faculty?
yeah. I think it's actually really important to be a full professor in a department chair role. So I realize that's not a luxury for everybody, but there are numerous reasons. I say the first and foremost is credibility in the dean's office. So you're an advocate for your faculty, right? And if you have gone through all the ranks, you can be an advocate not only for those that are untenured, recently tenured, but for fulls, right? And so having that credibility allows you to make cases for your senior people as well, which I think, if at least at Notre Dame, if you're not a full faculty member, you can't vote and participate in the cases of those going up for full. So then someone has to fill in for the department chair, and so you have more, yeah, you have more sway in the dean's office to convince them that this is a good candidate. So I think you can be a much stronger advocate for your faculty if you're a full professor. And so, we've had a recent case here where there's a faculty member considering being a department chair and he's not a full, and I highly advise him not to do it. There really wasn't an option, and which is often the case. So he had to do it, but he realizes now, his voice is muted, or at least limited in some cases, that he'd like to speak up to because he's not full yet. So the dean has a say in who's going to be full, right? So you're sort of trying to make cases where you're also being examined, or at least thought of when you're saying these things as to your next promotion, right? And so if you've gone through the ranks, it's like, hey, I've been there, I've done that, I think this is why we should do this, and there's no sort of pushback from the deans, at least, to say, or provost for that matter as well. So I really think it's really important. Also, just for us as a department, the tenure process involves letter writers, outside letter writers, to sort of help validate or substantiate the leadership and the worthiness, I guess you can say, of someone getting tenure, and so credibility, if you will. And so having a full ask for a letter is much different than an associate asking for a letter, because you're going to need letters from full professors, right? And so again, it's credibility on the outside market, right, that you're asking for letters for, that plays a key role in your ability to get good letters, which then enhances your candidate's case to get tenure. So it's not always possible, but I strongly recommend it if it's possible to have someone that's full.
Yeah, two things that you mentioned, Brad, that are so important is that credibility and advocacy. And so I think certainly, as chairs, it's the It's the definition of middle management if you think about it. And I always say we wear two hats, and you touched on it. Some days we put on our admin hat and we go to our faculty and basically are a portal for information that occurs above our head. And then other days we put on our professor hat and go to our dean or provost and advocate for the faculty. And I think it's very important to have that credibility and that advocacy. One thing that you talked about, and I give our guests some general things they can answer, is, and I really this resonated with me, is you talked about creating signature experiences as part of your leadership approach. I guess can you just talk a little bit more about how you've gone about creating leadership experiences and how that has contributed to your leadership ability and maybe the culture and climate of the department?
Yeah, I mean that's a phrase I've used to sort of highlight and to bring awareness to what I think are unique experiences that I want to bring to my both students, the classes and faculty. And so, I often people ask, what's the difference between going to Notre Dame and going to I went to University of Iowa, which I love, right? But the education a lot of times the textbooks are quite similar. The same book reps come here as come to as come to Iowa or any Kearney for that matter, right? Any same book reps are here, but it's who delivers and how they deliver, right? And so both from a deliver as in a department chair, I want to think how can I create something that's unique to Notre Dame and unique experience for the students. And so we've really been focusing on welcome. For instance, one example would be like a welcome week where when the students come back, we want them to know they're part of our department, our family, if you will, part of the college. And so we welcome back. We hand out our swag to promote the department. It's just a cultural building. You're part of something, right? You're part of something here. So that's one. We have the other thing I think we don't do well in academics is recognition. So at least in my tenure process to tenure, you're always feel like you're getting beat up by the referee process, right? Nothing is ever good enough in a lot of dimensions, right? And there's very little positive feedback in terms of, hey, you're doing well. What we do is in the classroom, which is what I love about this job. But what we've done here at Notre Dame is created, I'll say, an awards banquet ceremony where we recognize both students and faculty for the outstanding work they've done. It's small, but it means a lot. So anytime I think you can do that, adds a cultural sense, right, to your department, to your, so I can they're more willing to do something or help me do something later on, right? If you have a sense of, hey, we're recognized here and valued in that way. And so that's another one we've done. The one we've done recently is called Declaration Day. So here at Notre Dame, freshmen come in undeclared as a major. They have an intent, say, I think I'm going to be accounting or finance or marketing. But then their second semester, first year, they declare, I'm going to follow this path. I'm going to do accountancy. And what we do then is about a month after that, we have a celebration where we welcome all of those newly declared students to an event to then bring culture and bring community because they don't know who else said I'm going to be accountancy, right? And so we bring an event together, we get t-shirts, we have a celebration. It's a celebration. Hey, you're starting, not only you're in Notre Dame, but now you're in accountancy, and that means something. And look at around you as to who you're going to be on this journey with. And that really has just added a sense of community that helps in the classroom. It gets people familiar with who their classmates are, creates friends right away, right? And so that's another signature event that we've done. In terms of classes, again, the books are the same, right? A lot of textbooks are the same across all colleges, but where you can innovate is a class that doesn't require a textbook. And I'll give you one that's facing us is AI, artificial intelligence. It's a huge opportunity and challenge and headwinds. And so I've developed, along with a colleague here, a new class that doesn't have a textbook, but it's going to bring that topic to our students so they can see what it is, try to get their hands around it, right, before any textbook comes out, because by then it's too late or it changes so fast, as we know. And so that's unique. Maybe other schools are doing that, but I think we're probably one of the few that would do that. And we have the resources to do it, the faculty that are willing to do that. And so that's another signature class or experience that we have. And finally, it's the faculty, right? So, we're only as good as our faculty. And so, doing lunches, doing social gatherings, volunteer opportunities, again, community within the faculty. My door is open. I'm at work every day of the week, basically, right? So I'm very much an in the office person, even during COVID, to be honest. This to me is where community happens, and so I'm here. I want people to know that I'm here. It matters that I see people in the hallway. I'm not a promotion thing. It's just I feel a sense of commitment to this place, and they're here and I'm here, and we talk about our kids, or we talk about what we did over the weekend, and that builds, right, a sense of community. And you can't do that if you're not here. So I'm very much in the office, and also my door is open to build some sense of we're in this together. And you'll see me here just as I expected that you'd be here too.
I really love what you touched on there. Maybe coincidence, maybe it's because we share Midwestern roots, but I couldn't agree more with how you go about culture and climate. Um, I differentiate them a little bit, but you touch on it. I say culture is kind of what we can see from a distance. It's tradition, and you touched on it. You're right. College, the way we do school, whether it's where Iowa, Notre Dame, Fort Hays, classes are classes, transcripts are transcripts, finals, midterms. Um, but what really differentiates how does it feel to go there are the community and the climate things that and so you've really branded in a good way. What does it mean to be a student in the accountancy department at Notre Dame? Because I suspect because of national accreditation, whatever, a lot of the classes that they would take there, you probably took at Iowa, probably took at Nebraska Kearney back in the day. And I also think if you're a leader listening to this, and this, unfortunately, this is a common question I get post COVID is, how can I build community? How can I get people to want to be here? I always say it starts with the leader. You show up, you create those conversations, and eventually people will understand that the socially acceptable thing to do, sometimes the only way to connect with another person is by the coffee pot, right? Um, so, I mean, let's talk about that a little more. What are some things, what advice would you give
Yeah.
for new or future chairs that are worried about physically creating that sense of culture and community in their department?
Yeah, I'll give a couple examples that I think have helped with that, and how people start those. So, third Thursday of every month, we have a known event with the department, right? So we're having after 5 o'clock, we'll gather at this local restaurant, right? So it's a known event. We encourage all faculty invited, and so it just creates a hey time to get the time opportunity to get together. The other thing I think, I'll give credit to our dean's office. They create a faculty lounge that is worth going to for the coffee. And I'm telling you, you say, oh well, it's coffee, but people go there. And now it's not only my own department, but it's everybody else in the college, right? So it's got. I mean, this is a luxury, a luxury of Notre Dame, but it's got soda machine, it's got coffee, food that's left over from events which happen all the time are there. I mean, it is a gathering space, and that creates. I know what my colleague in finance is doing, and I just saw him ride his bike into school today, and I know he's picking his kid up this afternoon, and we talked over grabbing a cup of coffee. So. I'm telling you, it's those small things, right, where there's opportunity to gather that make a big difference. So if there's any way to think of that at whatever level that they're thinking about this, it could be donuts on Monday, or gatherings on Thursday, or a sense of place in the building, because then you want to be here, and there's a reason to walk up to the third floor lounge, which I'm on the third floor, so I don't have to walk very far, which causes issues when I'm eating too much. But nonetheless, there's a reason even those on the first floor would want to come up, and then I see them, right, because I'm going in there once in a while, right, or on the way back from some meeting, I'll stop in, and that would not happen. I would not know someone on the first floor because I don't go down there, right? But I do know them because I can get a sense of the, the water cooler slash find a good coffee machine and put it in your faculty lounge. And I tell you what, it'll make a difference.
I think higher ed, we all know how siloed we are. And any of us that have been in it long enough have had a handful of experiences where we will go to a faculty lunch, whatever, and find out a colleague within walking distance of our department is researching something similar, and we could have been sharing notes and collaborating, and we didn't know each other existed for 3 years. And I
Yeah.
think it's important what Brad said is even at a what I would call a very storied campus like as Notre Dame, where I never been there. It's on my bucket list to see a football game, and I know it's a beautiful campus. You still have to create experiences for people to show up and have that sense of community. Um, I always like to ask our leaders here two things that you touched on. One of them was difficult conversations, managing conflict. I think we all found out we have difficult conversations as professors, but it does take on a new meaning and a new level when you're a chair. Anything that you would like to comment on or advice or approaches that you have found that were helpful to you as you had to start having those difficult conversations as a department chair?
Yeah, those, as you said, they're difficult. I think what's helped the most was having conversations that weren't difficult before the one that's going to be difficult, right? And so, something that all department chairs at least offer here that I take very seriously is I meet with all my faculty at least once a year to sort of summarize the year behind and what the year's ahead, and that's the opportunity for me to listen to what challenges they face and what might be ahead, and try to advocate for them if they're wanting to do something different. But it's also a place where I learn about the challenges they're facing, and I can engage in them in a way that we can see a shared vision for something, so that when this difficult conversation is going to happen, which it will, I have a safe a place where I've already approached them from, where it isn't just out of the blue we're gonna have a difficult conversation. We haven't talked before. So anything you can do to sort of open up communication lines, yourself have office hours or faculty, it doesn't, or at least your doors open is probably more another way to do that. People walk by, but plan a meeting with them, have them send you something that says, here's what I've done, here's what I want to do, offering how you as a chair leader can help that, and that'll help with those inevitably difficult decisions that are going to happen. I mean, the other thing that I have had support here from, and maybe it's not possible elsewhere, is I have a very good assistant dean that would, be involved in those, especially early on as a new chair, to say, hey, if you're going to talk to a faculty member and it's going to involve, talking about, what the is there a future here, right? He or she, in this case, he is offered to sit in on that, which sort of adds a new balance to the room and credibility, and also insights that I don't have, because as you weren't trained necessarily to do these, and so either having that person to talk to beforehand to say, here's the talking points, here's how we should do this, or having them sit in the room has been very helpful for me. Now maybe future ones I won't, but it's definitely been a helpful transition to be able to ask someone to be part of that. So that's another one that I would, if possible, to utilize.
I always encourage people, and you're in a great situation where you have that support, but learning, you acquire the ability. It's that caught versus taught. Is I can help people and give them a framework for difficult conversations, but at the end of the day, you got to jump in the pool and learn to swim.
Yeah.
And I always encourage people, and what Brad said is so important, have a mentor. And if you don't have one on your campus, reach out in your professional network. Role play those conversations. Don't violate trust or confidentiality, but role play those conversations. And what Brad said, I like that, is it helps a balance in the room. Have an associate dean, have whatever the title is on your campus, somebody that is just willing to meet with you before and then support you during. And the other thing that I would tell all chairs, and Brad touched on it, is that relational equity is so important. If you've been in higher ed and your chair or dean, if they pop in your office unannounced and your initial response is, oh no, they probably have not been developing relationships enough, right? A couple more then, Brad, here that I really like that you touched on is stress management. And yeah, because I can tell you that was something that I really, I've always tried to be mindful about exercising and things like that. Um, but I don't know if you can prepare somebody for the added stress that comes with chair leadership. Um, Maybe, and I think it's probably a journey for you. What are some things that you learned or that you're currently doing to work on your own stress management as a chair?
Oh, that's a big one. I think the biggest is that, I can't be the leader that I want to be if I'm not in a state where I am, comfortable and have an outlook that I need, right? So it's not selfish. You got to take care of yourself first to be able to be effective at this role. So for me, I'm different outlets, I guess you can say. But first of all, I'm a very early riser. As Chris said, we grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in a farming community, and my grandparents were dairy farmers, and they would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning every morning. And I, as a kid, thought, man, that's impressive. But as an adult, I think, oh my God, that is amazing that they did this. And so I get up early. I'm a workout person in the morning. So I need to get my workout in, clear my head, de-stress, think about my day. So I get up 4:30 every morning, 5 o'clock workout, 6 o'clock done, and then I have about a half hour to sort of think about what the day is going to look like as best as I can. And so that sort of prepares me, right? Gets me in the mental state that I need. I think, people say, oh, it takes, exercise, I'm too tired. I get energy from exercise. I don't know if I'm sure that I'm not the only one, but I actually, creates energy for me, even though it takes energy to do. So I didn't know that 10 years ago, but I definitely know now. So I need that. That's a starter. That's a must have in the morning for me. And then in the evening, or after work, I mean, as I mentioned, I grew up on a farm, so I need to get my hands dirty. I need to just get away from what the human interaction, so to say, at the professional level, with my kids on a different level, or fixing something, because there's a sense of accomplishment doesn't happen very often in your day. But if I fix something or change something in my house, or I like to garden, right, get my hands dirty. That really, really helps me. And I tell my deans that, tell all the deans, I said, you may not like that I'm, taking on this adventure of a new farming project, which I do, but I tell the dean or dean, assistant deans, that I'm doing this and I'll be better in work because I do this. And I know it takes time to do that, but I'm going to be mentally better at my job as a faculty member, as a leader, if I'm able to do this. So I do this not to take time away from my job, but to enhance the performance of the job that I'm doing. So both the morning and at least evening or after work, give me an opportunity to do that. So super important. I think I mentioned in my notes, I wore this Aura ring, right, that tells me my stress, right? So I find data. Obviously, I'm an academic in a very data heavy field, so I find data to be fascinating, right? And how can I use the data to make adjustments? So it will tell me when I'm stressed, and it is quite accurate. This is not, I don't get paid by this company, but it is quite accurate, right? And think, how can I either preempt or prepare for those that I know, or certain meetings, interaction with people, right? And so how can I then use that to say, all right, I know this is going to happen. I know I'm likely to be elevated. My stress can be elevated. What can I do to preemptively help me with that? And so it's been fascinating. I've followed it. I made some adjustments. Going for walks, right, before after a meeting is super important, or even doing meetings on a walk. That is also, it's a way to diffuse, to add an energy, a sunlight to it changes dynamics than sitting in a room with the door closed. So those are some things that I definitely have engaged in and need to do for me to be successful.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Whoever you are, wherever you're listening, everyone has something that they like to do. And, I always say one person's pleasure and another person's pain. There are people that enjoy, running marathons to decompress. More power to them. But there are some people that As Brad said, grew up on in a very rural part or a very rural state. If I remember correctly, I think Brad was from the eastern part of Nebraska, and I grew up out west. But nonetheless, probably very similar communities and values where we grew up. Um, I guess as we close here, Brad, anything that that you are currently, I always like to ask my guests, currently doing. You mentioned what helps you outside of the office become a better leader. Anything in addition in terms of professional development that you are listening to, reading, hoping to do to make yourself an even better leader?
Yeah, I mean, I get podcasts. I'm trying now that you say that, I'm trying to remember which exactly what I'm listening to, but I'm always looking for sort of insights, from the leadership. CEOs of companies, how they handle situations, right? Those are sort of models that I follow, or try to gain insight into creating new signature experiences, like what might work here. The other thing that I benefit from, and maybe this is an opportunity for others too, is as a department chair, I have an advisory board that represents about 30 alumni that I um, provide meetings for them two times a year, right? Where I'm updating them on the department. But for me, the benefit of that is I get access to 30 very successful alumni that love this place, that want to help. We have an executive team that meets once a month, and I learn a tremendous amount from what they're seeing and how they're handling things, or how they handle things. So it's another find a mentor. So this is an opportunity that I didn't know existed, but didn't think that I would ever sort of think of them as as a mentorship opportunity. But I learn more from them than I think they would learn from me in these meetings, because they're out there facing different challenges, and they're sharing them with me and saying, all right, here's how you might handle that, or if you want us to help with the situation, they will help. So I'm trying to utilize their expertise and their lived experiences that I can use in the academic space. And so that's it's been exceptional experience for me. And then related to that, I also serve on a couple different boards. So I'm on the University of Iowa Accountancy Board, where we meet again twice a year. So I get to go back and see how they're running their department, which is phenomenally interesting because they face similar challenges but have different resources, different strategies. And so, we don't necessarily compete for the same, students. So it's great. I can see theirs, and I'll share what we're doing, right? And then I'm on a local bank board. So my research is in banking, but there I get to see, man, how's corporate world facing, what challenge are they facing? How do they deal with it? How is the CEO approach meetings, dealing with situations? So any opportunity you can, I know it takes work and time, but to be able to put yourself in a position where you can access talents of other people. I don't have to reinvent the wheel, and I can say, man, this, I really thought he handled that well. Or sometimes the best things you learn is how they shouldn't have handled it, right? It's like, yeah, I would not have done that, and here's why, right? So learning from both of those sides has been helpful to me, and I'm definitely a better department chair for having those opportunities.
And what Brad said is the reason why I personally cast and encourage everyone to cast a wide net, because leadership is leadership and you can learn so much from, like he said, CEOs of banks, people that are just in the general leadership space. I know the reason that I have K-12 leaders on here is because as university leaders, which we are as department chairs, they are on the ground floor of students teaching and learning. And while the context is different, some of their issues, if we really pay attention, are the same in terms of conflict and instructional leadership and building culture and climate, and even reaching out to the community. So, Brad, this has been wonderful. So anything as we close out here that I guess that we didn't touch on, or that you would just like to add, if we have listeners out there that are either contemplating moving into the chair position, or like you said, do I want to re-up for another year, or maybe they just need some encouragement where they're at?
Yeah, I mean, there's the saying that my wife and I talk about is listening before talking will make life a lot easier, right? So anytime you can, start by listening, right? Trying to gather information. Sometimes you may sound like you're not engaged in something, but I will sit there and try to take in what I can, understand concerns, try to think from their perspective before I sort of jump into something and say, here's a solution or here's a path. So in faculty, students, I want to hear from them, and my first objective is to listen.
Well, Brad, this has been wonderful. You're doing great things, both in your field as well as a chair. Again, to our listeners today, we've been fortunate to have Dr. Brad Badertscher as the department chair, Department of Accountancy at the University of Notre Dame. So thank you, Brad. And as always, thank you to our listeners. Always appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to improve yourself as a leader. We wish you well, and we'll see you next time.